Ave María Purísima, sin pecado concebido, or in English, O Mary, conceived without sin. Welcome to the Meaning of a Catholic. My name is Luis Medina, and after so many tries, we finally get to be here hosting Reconquista Network on the Meaning of Catholic. I'm very excited, very thrilled. Thank you very much for joining us in this first session of many. We hope we have many chances to be here often with great content for y'all and telling you all what's happening in the Hispanic world, also across the Catholic world, the globe, and anything that it has to do with our culture. Before we start and everything, I want to thank all of y'all who are signing up. Let me just check very quickly. The chat is live. Thank you very much. I've already seen some of y'all logging in. Feel free to ask any questions while we talk. We'll address it at the end of it. I love interacting with y'all. For those of you who do not know a lot about me, which is basically 99% of y'all, let me make a quick introduction of myself. My name is Luis Medina. I've done media for the last 2 decades, and I've worked on all sorts of media, like mass media, radio, you name it. So currently I have a YouTube channel named Reconquista Network. So you will wonder, how did this guy end up here in the Meaning of Catholic? Well, turns out that a while back, I lost count of time. A while back, Timothy asked me to do a special series about Spain and all the Spanish contributions here in the United States, which, by the way, they're quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of contributions. Believe it or not, we owe a lot of our independence and, you know, the nation that we have. A lot of it is actually thanks to Spain. But anyway, that's a different topic. You can check out that series and all the Spanish contributions in America. So we're rescuing that, showing how this Christian civilization was the first global Christian civilization. And not just that, it actually helped enable the birth of this nation that we all enjoy and live in here in the United States. Well, so that's how it got started. That got rolled into what was supposed to be one video into, I don't know, like 6, 7, I forgot how many we did, which they were awesome, absolutely awesome. And eventually one thing led to another, and I got an invitation to join y'all and do some shows during like every week, every 2 weeks here in the Meaning of Catholic, which I said, absolutely yes, brother. So that's how Reconquista Network got started here. Reconquista Network has a lot of Spanish content, obviously. And what do I do there? Well, all sorts of things. In Reconquista, talk about U.S. politics primarily. That's kind of my specialty. I've been sometimes covering U.S. politics for the last 2 decades, and all sorts of cultural aspects regarding here in the United States. I explain, in other words, what happens in the U.S. to the Spanish-speaking world, because guess what? The media down there is just the same as the mass media here. In fact, they almost suspect that they get their cue from the mass media here, and the perception they project of the United States is clearly not an accurate one. So as somebody who has lived half of his life here, somebody who understands both cultures, what I do is explain policy and culture down there and break a lot of the mythical barriers that exist. Because believe it or not, people down there sometimes have misconceptions of what goes on in the United States. Like literally, I remember once a guy said, you know what, I don't want to visit the United States. I'm afraid. What do you mean you're afraid of? You know, I'm afraid that there's going to be some violence. I'm like, well, you come from a country that has a lot more violence than the United States, but I guess. So once you explain what life goes on, they take a different step, or they believe, some of them, not everybody, because of the media, that there's like a racism problem or whatever, you know, the media is just parroting essentially. So that's what I do in the podcast, and it's a very good one. A lot of people love it, enjoy it. It's lively, it's just jovial and all those kind of things. But I also not only have my YouTube channel, do a radio show, weekly radio show that I talk about U.S. politics here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I live here in Fort Worth. Shout out to my friends at St. Andrew today on the Feast of St. Andrew, by the way, here in Fort Worth. And I have a little politics Spanish in 99.5 FM radio station. Anyway, so that's kind of what we do at the media and all that. And I took this opportunity because I have a great concept to show you. So before we get started, thank you very much for joining us. Please don't forget to share this video and all the other videos that you find on the Meaning of a Catholic, all the interviews. Please do so with your contacts and support the Meaning of a Catholic patrons page. All right. First of all, so what's the whole purpose of this show? The purpose is to bridge cultures. There's obviously a gap going on. It's a lot smaller than the media tries to portray it between the Hispanic or Anglo cultures. And it's not as bad as people think. In fact, we have a lot more things in common, actually. And not just that, we can work together because there's, as you could tell, this great just movements that try to attempt against the faith, against anything that is cultural. They're trying to erase the Anglo and the Spanish culture and any other culture. So we got to gain strength by uniting. And a lot of people are mind blown by this concept because they think, well, we're supposed to be the enemies, which that's nonsense to begin with. But that set aside, this will enable us to see the blessings that we already have. Right. So that's the whole point, to bridge, to get along, to value each other's treasures and learn to how to fight all this agenda that's trying to erase our heritage in that sense. OK. Also, don't forget, obviously, like I mentioned, any questions you have, please feel free to ask me during the show. So last week, we had Thanksgiving this past weekend. It was awesome. By the way, happy Thanksgiving to y'all who had it. I was invited to a show in Spanish. There's this kind of popular historian in Argentina who has like 90,000+ subscribers down there. And believe it or not, they say, hey, man, why don't you come over and tell us a little bit about Thanksgiving? It's like, sure, absolutely. I'd love to talk to you about it. So I give an explanation what Thanksgiving was. We mentioned the fact that, as you probably know, or some of you already suspect, Thanksgiving actually started with Spain in St. Augustine, Florida, and also later in El Paso, Texas. And then we had the Pilgrims. And this is not necessarily a competition, but I was just bringing a broader concept that they had before. And they were absolutely delighted. I mean, if you had they had no idea that was like a lot of Thanksgiving concepts and traditions. They literally, some of them thought that because you want, in America, unless you're white or Anglo, whatever you want to call it, you're not allowed to partake or participate in a feast like Thanksgiving, which I find it like extremely laughable and ridiculous. But obviously, I live here, so it's a little different. So when I'm trying to no, that's not the way it rolls up there. It's actually pretty neat and all that. In explaining how the concept of Thanksgiving is not just the mass, because a lot of people, well, I guess it's just because somebody said mass first before the Puritans. Well, not really. Like, for example, in St. Augustine, Florida, one of the interesting things is once they landed there, the Spanish, because they had a pretty hard journey, they offer mass, and after that mass, they invited the local Indians to feast, right? And the same thing was in El Paso, modern day El Paso. Once they overcame whatever trial and tribulation they went through, which was not a small thing, they celebrated with a mass and then a feast. We Catholics obviously eat a lot, not to compete with my Baptist friends, but we kind of hold our own too when it comes to feast and especially the Hispanic culture. So one of the first things we do after you get scared, you eat, at least in Mexico. So we celebrated Thanksgiving. Well, I was explaining those facts and they loved it. It was amazing. And then I started explaining, well, also when the Puritans came, they celebrated Thanksgiving and all these things. Nowadays, we have all this big meal and we enjoy it. And you see all sorts of cultures, guys who speak not a single lick of English. They partake. I mean, you see all those TikTok videos and whatnot. And they're all like, I didn't know that. Like, of course not. We never saw that on TV. Well, of course not. You're not gonna see it. So here I am explaining that to them, and believe it or not, this changed hearts. I mean, a lot of people were commenting during that show. Mind you, it has a broader audience that I have, even probably my radio show. And a lot of people were like, you know what? I used to just diss it, like, not really care or hate it. Obviously, they're not gonna have Thanksgiving down there in the Spanish speaking countries, but they had a better understanding of it, and they actually developed an appreciation for it. And it was an important lesson because a lot of people were like, my heart has been changed just by knowing that it's something that all of us can get along, that all of us can partake, that all of us can learn something about it. And I'm seeing this live, by the way. And that was an incredible, incredible lesson for me, an eye-opening lesson. And by the way, hello, everybody who's joining already the chat. I'll see you. I'll check it out later. And it was an eye-opening lesson. I thought, you know what? We can use some American traditions to bridge some differences. We have a lot more in common, and we should do it in a moment right now where we're seeing, unfortunately, how this massive campaign to erase anything that is decent, anything that is traditional, anything that is worthy, anything that is Catholic, to be honest, and beyond Catholic too, but particularly Catholic. And it starts with understanding each other. In the Spanish-speaking world, for those of you who are not very familiar with, there's a lot of misconceptions of what it's like to be in America and what it's like to be Catholic in America. Believe it or not, they think there are really not a lot of Catholics. And when I explain to them is things like, you know what? The U.S. is the fourth largest Catholic body in the world. There are literally more Catholics here in America than there are Spaniards in Spain. Oh, there are more Catholics than Argentinians in Argentina, or Colombians in Colombia. And really, the only country that have more bigger Catholic population is going to be Brazil, it's going to be the Philippines, and it's going to be Mexico. After that, it's the U.S. I mean, so that's a pretty big deal. So if we go by numbers alone, essentially we're bare standing. So they're like, oh, really? Yeah. In a lot of those places who have a lot of that Catholic heritage, the churches are still closed, so they're not giving sacraments. Whereas here, I mean, we don't have a prime situation, but definitely we're a lot. Once you start hearing those testimonies down there, you'll be thankful for what we got here. So essentially, when I explain those things and demystify what's going on down there, a lot of the attitudes change, and that's kind of like, in other words, like the scales come down, and we understand each other's Catholic roots and origins and nationality, and all those things kind of go away. At least don't become that important, because we can still preserve our culture, yet what unifies us is not the culture, it's the Catholic aspect of it. So this is awesome. So when I was explaining those during that show with Patricio Lons, which, thank you for having me over there, Patricio, and that crowd, that he has a huge follower of a lot of very traditional Catholics from, all the Spanish speaking world. A lot of them are not necessarily very well aware of what goes on here in the United States. Again, just because they're not exposed, they can be exposed, just like you and I sometimes are not exposed to what really goes on down in Latin America or the Hispanic countries in general. They were marveled. They loved it, and it's a great opportunity. They were interested, and I'm still getting a lot of great replies from that video, the series. It's not the first one of that kind that I've done, but it kind of opened this awesome bridge that we can all take advantage of. So this situation gives us an opportunity. The real question is, for us as Catholics, is what can we do to start reaching out? And the more important question is, why? Why do we need to reach out? The first and foremost is, if we try to fight this agenda that is trying to erase our faith, we're going to lose. That's just the reality. We're not going to be able to endure. It's going to be a losing battle. The people who are in charge of destroying our culture and our faith have all the money, right? They have all the resources. They have all the propaganda machine. They have all the means and the power. So we'll never outgun them, essentially. We'll never outrun them. So what can we do? Well, we have the faith first and foremost. And second of all, we have unity. We have brethren. A lot of people have actually been very, very interested in what happens in the U.S., especially with Catholics here. And there's a reason why. Because our nation right now, I'm not trying to sound like your typical, patriotic, like Toby Keith fan, like a Bush beer drinker, whatever, guy who's not aware of what goes on in the world. But in reality, this is right now the last place standing. This is the last hope, at least as of now. And that sounds very strange, but the only reason that all this like closure to the churches, what you see in the internet, what's happening in Australia or in Austria and all these other places in the world, America's that last place right now that is holding the line, particularly some of the conservative states. So even in Spain, that I talked to a lot of friends of mine up there, is they're really having a hard time. It's not as easy as before. So America is holding the line, and America looks like has a special role. And this is not a show about American greatness and all that. It's just stating the reality about where we are right now. So when I explain those things, a lot of people, instead of attacking Catholics from America without knowledge or any other Christian, they start praying for us. And that's the key. You develop this sense of devotion, of prayer, and a lot of people are like, okay, I can get behind this. I can actually, support this. And it unites us, it strengthens us, and it makes us actually better prepared to face what we're about to face, which is even harder. Cultural times are changing. The world is a lot different than when I was obviously a little kid. And the enemy obviously is prepared, is armed and ready, locked and loaded, okay? And is ready and just being using its power to attack us. So that's what we got to do. We got to unite, and we got to have the best of both worlds. Thank you all. Seeing all the comments. Thank you for checking it out. Let me go for some comments already before it gets too loaded. Ray, say good day, good everyone. Good evening, by the way. Thanks, Ave Cristo Rex. One of my favorite greetings actually in Spanish is just like one I started. Not that you mentioned that. It's the O Mary conceived without sin. I don't know, but in Spanish sounds like it's very traditional. Well, it used to be very traditional, where you literally call somebody up and he will answer, instead of saying hello, he will answer, Hail Mary, conceived without sin, in Spanish, Ave Maria Purísima. That will be our greeting. Or Holy Mother, Madre Santa, things like that, those expressions. I wish, not to be nostalgic, I wish we'll have them back, but it is what it is. Where's everybody? Watching Tucker, maybe? Good question. Well, they have different shows today, Nick. And so today I'm flying solo. Thanks for checking it out. And don't forget to check out all the shows, Terror of Demons and The Pelican Diaries with Jeremiah. One of my favorite shows. As my daughter, I put it on Twitter, by the way, shout out to Jeremiah. So the other day I was just, doing chores at home, and I had Jeremiah on. And my daughter just walks by and listens to the show and says, yeah, I like that guy. He's funny. It's like, yeah, he is. He's awesome too. So I guess you have more fans for that show. Love the music intro. Thank you, Haley. Thank you. And I love the Spanish. Thank you very much. Or as we say in Spanish, gracias, gracias, gracias. David says, Cowtown. I used to go to St. Andrew's School in church. No way, David. David, when Cowtown is Fort Worth, this is the city where I live and I love. And yeah, St. Andrews, St. Andrews, awesome, awesome place. There's two St. Andrews. One is Catholic, one is Anglican. St. Andrew downtown in Fort Worth is the Anglican church. That church, by the way, not to deviate from the topic, but became a little bit popular a few years back when the Baptists were having like that conservative resurgence and all that. St. Andrew, even though it's an Anglican church, the Anglicans and the Episcopalians having that little split going on. Well, St. Andrew sided with the conservative side, and Albert Mohler, Dr. Mohler from Southern Baptist Seminary, did an interview to the people of St. Andrew. That was long ago, and it kind of put the church in the spot. Fort Worth's an interesting, by the way, David, I don't know if you noticed that. Fort Worth's an interesting place. It's actually even for a lot of Protestant churches, even Anglicans, they're fairly conservative, pretty solid in that regard. I was surprised to find that here in Cowtown. But anyway, it is what it is. Thank you, Chris, for those nice comments. Says Haley, I don't speak Spanish, but great idea having Spanish-speaking hosts, not a Spanish apologetics channel I'm aware of. Oh, yeah. We're pretty excited. There's going to be more content, Spanish-speaking. Well, no. Spanish origin content in English, clearly. That's the whole point. And we'll do more shows also with Timothy and Jeremiah and Kennedy and everything. It's just adding, we're expanding the repertoire. I'm pretty excited. We tried to do these last week. We had some technical difficulties. And the week before, believe it or not, I got an awful cold. I mean, one of those like I never had before. Literally lost my voice for a couple days. I was not able to work even at the radio station and shows, and I had to cancel everything. So finally, after this week of Thanksgiving, and we're back in Texas because we have to go to Missouri for Thanksgiving. Now we're in the saddle and we're pretty excited, and there's more stuff to come. So stay tuned. My family intermarried with a big Nicaraguan family. Definitely have some cultural misunderstandings. Yeah. Also intermarried with Filipinos, but not many problems there except some of the food. Funny thing you mentioned that. Filipinos, shout out to my friends, Filipinos. They're often like the forgotten brothers, because they're just as Hispanic as any Mexican or any Nicaraguan, but I don't know why it's kind of like we look at them for the periphery, even though we share a lot. As a matter of fact, Mexico and Philippines have a lot in common. The port of Acapulco is where the Spanish sailed for the Philippines. It was named after, obviously, King Philip II and that island. And there's a lot of cultural imports that we get from the Philippines. Some of the dresses, the typical Mexican dresses, have a lot of influence from the Philippines. And the same, some words in the Filipino language have a lot of origins from New Spain, nowadays known as Mexico. So yeah, it's a very interesting culture. I obviously never been to the Philippines. In the food aspect, they have a little different diet. Obviously, the train is different. I heard, and I'm not sure if there's any friends from the Philippines can confirm this, that they sometimes can eat chicken for breakfast. And when I heard that, I was like, that's kind of odd. But then again, I think, you know what? We eat Chick-fil-A sometimes in the morning. I mean, not me, but like us a nation. So I guess I can see that. That makes sense. Finally, Luis is in the house. Thank you, Andrew. Finally, we're here. We're excited. We're thrilled to be here. There's going to be a short version of the show. I just want to give a quick introduction because I could not wait. I was so thrilled and excited to be finally here live. And tomorrow I get back in the routine. I was like, I got to get the show today. I got to do the introduction and all this. And we're going to get the ball rolling here. I forget. I am moderator here. I stop. Yeah, there we go, Haley. Yeah, you're allowed. Please feel free to chat. It's all good. Hey, Alan, how you doing? Hello, everybody. There we go. What else do I have? Oh, look at this. I lived in Spain as a kid back when Franco was caudillo. Oh, it was so Catholic, so strict. Not that long ago. Nick, funny thing you mentioned that word caudillo. Let me very quickly explain that for a lot of people who don't know. And this is not an exhaustive explanation, but caudillo essentially is kind of like a leader of a movement. The Hispanic culture rallies behind caudillos a lot. That's what inspires movements. The closest thing we have had here in modern history in America, and it's not even the same thing, just so you have an idea of comparison, it will be kind of like the Trump movement. They rally behind a man more than an actual institution or an idea per se. So Franco was a caudillo in that regard, and that goes really well, usually, that idea in the Spanish-speaking countries. In America, it's more an institutional concept, right? Like we rally behind, and it's great. I mean, I love it. Therefore, I live here. Otherwise, I wouldn't. It's just different. It's not a better word. It's just what it is. But that word is caudillo. That's true. Jeremiah, bro. I don't know what's happening today, but it makes me so happy. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. The Pelican Dares. I love that show. And my daughters, like I mentioned before. God help us if we're the last hope. Well, that's exactly the whole point, David. That's exactly the point. God uses the least likely people, the least likely cultures, just like Abraham, the least of all the nations, like of all peoples. Well, this is kind of the situation. Now, the real question for us, David, and all of us who are listening and watching is, what are we going to do? This is the last hope. This is what we have. It is not an ideal situation, but it's what we have. And you make the most of what you get, not what you want. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna answer? At one point in our lives, we're gonna answer to our Lord for our actions. Both as a generation and individually. What are we gonna tell to we're gonna tell the Lord? Well, I was in America. I was busy. I was afraid. Whatever it is, or we're gonna say, you know what? Against all odds, we prevail by the grace of God, and we stepped up to the challenge. I think that the answer is stepping up to the challenge. We have a lot to offer as long as we walk by the hand of God. Not to be preacher or anything, but that's truly my belief. I know a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in this country because of its origins and culture and flaws and whatever it is. I beg to differ. There's a lot of potential here, particularly the just the ground is fertile, and all we got to do is pray. But that's the key. We got to pray. That's the most important aspect. That's the easiest one and the hardest at the same time. Thank you very much, Anthony, for all the kind wishes. Thanks. I love to be here in the Minute of Catholics. Catholic. What else I have? We'll start that. I love that my Protestant parents will love it. Yep. So, what else I have here? Well, let me take a little sip of my water. Oh, check this out. Thanks, Joe. No, not what I meant. Check this out. Hello from Australia. New addition to Minute of Catholic. That's true, Giovanni. Oh, that's so awesome. Love Luis's work. Thank you very much. I'm very humble by your kind words. Appreciate it. Shout out to my friends in Australia. That also I have actually a couple of viewers from Australia, even in Spanish, believe it or not, Giovanni. I wanted Reconquista Neguar, 2 guys from Australia, and they're Catholic too, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. You Americans need to realize that you are the backup for us under tyranny, a bit of like the SSPX being the backup for if all the Tridentine Latin Mass orders get banned. It's a very interesting dynamic, right? Yeah. It's the unlikely heroes. Again, if we really think about it and just analyze it, you never thought like America will be a place where the masses will keep going on more than any Catholic country, whether it's France, Spain, Mexico, Portugal, I don't care, Italy. I mean, but that's often the way, life works, divine providence works. God gives us a lot of surprises, and it kind of keeps us in our toes in a good way, makes us not have any of the haughty eyes or just have humility, right? I talk to my friends and my family down there, and they don't really get access to the sacraments the way we do. It's once you put it in perspective, it kind of, in my case at least, it blows my mind. It's like, I get to go to mass every week. I mean, this is pretty awesome. And they're like, really? No way. It's just like we're still waiting in some places, not every place. Or they put a lot of like requirements. Let me put it that way. That way we don't get in trouble. I knew Luis was working with us and he was planning to start going live, but I was sick last week and my kids have been sick the past few days. So I've been kind of able, same here. Well, I'm out of it, Jeremiah, too. Finally, it was kind of, there's a weird strain going on or something. I don't know. Whatever it was, it's kind of, taking a pretty good lick out of us. But we're fine. I mean, we're healthy and we're thankful. It's just interesting that every time I try to start a broadcast here, there's some sort of major obstacle that will impede it. It's like, okay, so finally we got it done and we got started. Paul Lucero. Oh, how will you say that? Yeah, Lucero in English. Lucero. Thanks for the Filipino shout out, Luis. My pleasure. God bless. So many similarities because of the Spanish Empire. That's for sure. Texas was called New Philippines before Texas name. That I did not know. That's actually a very interesting fact. Thank you very much for that fact. That's very interesting. I'm gonna Google that. That's not that I doubt you. It's just pretty cool. I missed this live. Great to have Luis on the Minute of Catholic. My pleasure. It's awesome to be here. I was definitely waiting. I mean, And I've been checking all the videos, by the way. I mean, as much as I can. I'm gonna make a quick recommendation. One of my favorite videos, besides Jeremiah's and the Terror of Demon shows and all that. Believe it or not, I'm not trying to sound shallow or anything, but it's the one Timothy made about the chickens. I love that video. Even my girls loved it too. If you haven't watched it, please check it out. It's awesome, awesome. How to raise chickens. The Catholic amigos, Luis and Jeremiah, my favorite, full of the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Marilyn. We're just servants of the Lord, and we're happy to be here. There's a lot to be thankful for, to be honest. That's the whole point. I'm a strong believer is one of the best antidotes against depression or what. I full disclaimer, I have no idea what a depression is like. I'm very blessed to never have been under depression. But I know what it does to a lot of people. And that scares a lot, out of me because it's a serious deal. But I've talked to a lot of friends. This is personal testimony. And they have told me that one of the best ways to fight that depression is with gratitude, thankfulness. So I'm strongly a believer of being thankful, especially when you feel overwhelmed, when life piles things on you and you go through a terrible crisis and trauma. Just count your blessings. It will help you, and exercise too if you can. Giovanni, well, Australia is in a bit of trouble liberty-wise. Yeah, heard that. It's crazy, man. I'm sorry, I can't believe what's going on there. I'm sure what we're going to do. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to do. I'm really in our channel. We're praying a lot for the people of Australia in Reconquista Network too. If it is as we hear from the reports, man, you guys have all our sympathies because it's tough. It's tough. This is my new favorite show now. Mucho rico. Thanks. But stop me if I start to vent about my Nicaragua relatives. Hey, brother Nick, by all means, as long as we keep it civil, bring it on, brother. We love to hear. In Hispanic culture, we have no qualms with just venting, and obviously, the stereotype sometimes is true in that regard. Bring it on, brother. It is what it is. They still love you, and it's fun, and makes actually those make good memories. So, my Nicaraguan, that will not be very good for my character. As long as we don't slander, we're good. We're good. But don't worry. I'm glad you're here, Nick. And by all means, please share. And any of y'all, you're more than welcome to share. I love that's one of the things I do actually a lot in my show. I interact with y'all in the comments. It's one of my favorite things. I know a lot of people don't usually interact with the chat and the commenters. That's not my style. My style is actually love, even with trolls and whatnot. I mean, it's just fun for me. I love hanging out and learning. There's always something I can learn. They enrich the show and all that. So by all means, feel free to comment anything, as long as we keep it civil, by the way. Just make sure this is a family-friendly show. Say hi to Jeremiah. Article on New Philippines. Thank you. I'll check it out. Andre Science. Do you think Catholic Spain will ever return to her former glory? That's actually a very interesting question, because if you ask, let me tell you what I found out first from the experts, like Guillermo Perez Galicia or Bárcena or things, people who are like from Salamanca school and all that. A lot of people think they will happen so, and not because they have a love for Spain, which they do, but because they believe in private revelation and prophecies, not above scripture, clearly, obviously. But they think that it's bound to happen. A lot of them think it's bound to happen not just because of private revelation. There's different revelations about Spain returning to her former glory, and it's a nation that was consecrated to the Sacred Heart, and all these great things, which is true. But they think also it's just ingrained in the Spanish character. That's the only nation that was able to overcome the Moors, the Islamic invasion. Anywhere else that Islam, set foot, they stay and they set shop. Except for Spain, they were kicked out. So it is, in their estimation, just meant to happen. It's a matter of time. If they say if we waited 700 years, we can wait another 700 years. A lot of people don't think so. A lot of people think it's over. And this is where the interaction with people who think that Spain will return to her former days say, well, that's exactly what's going to happen, because when things seem lost, it will bounce back. And that's the debate. What do I think? Since that's the original question, I think Spain has a chance. I don't know if they will return or not because it's impossible for me. But if anything, let me put it this way: if there is a chance for Spain to return to the former glories, it will not start in Spain. And I know this is going to sound crazy to a lot of my Spanish friends, but it's going to start here in the States. This is the last, hope. And this is what's keeping the flame alive. And from here, that flame will expand. And whether that flame ignites, rekindles, whatever goes on in Spain and it takes over, whatever, well, that's a different story. But whatever starts, whatever happens, the origin will be here, in my opinion. Also, from often when people ask that question, is the former glory in what sense? Like, if we're more specific, is we tend to see Spain's success from a material standpoint. We tend to see like, okay, they conquered, they was the biggest empire where the sun never set. Well, those are great things, but really the accomplishment of Spain is not that they got a bunch of real estate. Donald Trump has a lot of real estate. Or any guy, it's like, not disrespect, but that's not really the main thing. The main thing is they evangelize a whole new group of people. They created a new culture, and it was through the hand of Our Lady. That's, in my opinion, what really is valuable of Spain. Just like the discovery of America. I know that the Vikings were here before, but that's not the accomplishment. The accomplishment is to establish a route back and forth, a reliable route that enabled commerce and maritime trade, that it was back and forth and it was safe and it was effective. That's the accomplishment of Spain, not that they just reached land. The same thing with, the glorious, they evangelized at the same time Europe was being torn apart through Protestantism. They were here, reaping the seeds of the gospel. So that's the glory. So if people think, well, Spain will be a new empire just like America? To me, that's kind of shallow. That's irrelevant. What's the point of having a country rule the world if they're going to be pagan or heathen? Might as well don't do anything, because you're just going to spread the errors, as Our Lady warned us about, Our Lady Fatima warned us about Russia, right? So that's kind of the focus. But a lot of people are looking for that. They just want Spain to reach. And obviously I love Spain. That's our heritage. You don't have to be Spanish to be thankful for the Spanish, like as I mentioned before. But what we should be aiming, in my estimation, my humble opinion, is to evangelize. And I think that's why America's greatness has not been reached yet. Like we're growing and it's awesome, but the best is yet to come. That's what I'm trying to say. Because once we get it, once we as a nation understand our role and our mission and why God put us in this privileged place in this time in history, then we can turn that and start evangelizing, for the church and the gospel, obviously, most importantly. So we'll see. Before I run out of time, a couple more comments. I see it, yeah. And hey, Luis, hi. And hi, Jeremiah. Thoughts on Garabandal? What an interesting question. I spoke, I have the privilege of knowing Dr. Bárcena. Dr. Bárcena is in the movie Garabandal. It was produced in Spain. I know some of the people who were involved in the production of that movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Garabandal, for those of you who do not know, is not an approved apparition. It's a Marian apparition in northern Spain. It's still is not forbidden, but it's not approved. It's one of those weird odd spots that they find themselves. And I talk to all sorts of people across the aisle. Obviously, in the Spanish world, it's a bigger deal than probably in the English or any other non-Spanish speaking world. But Garabandal was an apparition that happened in the 60s. Essentially in the Basque country, like in the northern part of Spain. And these girls, just like Fatima, these girls got to see Our Lady, and the lady gave some warnings, and a lot of miracles happened. So says the testimonies and documented. And here's with where we get in a little bit of a messy argument. The people who deny Garabandal said it was not legit because Conchita, the main seer, recanted, And Conchita said, well, Our Lady told me I was going to recant under the pressure. And the people who are for Garabandal said, no, there's clearly miracles and healings. And they have, apparently, based on testimonies, medical testimonies and all that. So it's an interesting scenario. All that say is not on a proof, officially speaking, from the church, like, let's say, Fatima or Guadalupe or La Salette, and so on. But it still has a lot of following. And a lot of conservative, traditional Catholics, to put it that way, subscribe to the Garabandal apparitions, which essentially is a repetition of Our Lady Fatima message. So it's not as controversial as other apparitions that we talk often in this day and age. So what do I make out of this? Well, Garabandal, personally, I don't think it hurts, but I don't think it should be imposed. Like, it's more than okay if people don't buy into it. But if it helps you with your devotion to Christ, by all means, use it. The Lord uses anything, to help you, and that's the whole point, that you get closer to Christ more than whether we like one apparition or not. That's the whole point of Our Lady. Our Lady wants to bring us, like a good mother, wants to bring us to our Lord. On a little side note, my late wife, rest in peace, when she was still in the Protestant world, she was a convert to Catholicism. When she was in the Protestant world, she struggled a lot with the Marian stuff. Everything else made sense, even the papacy and all that. Well, the movie came out a while back, and I told her, hey, there's this movie. What is it about? Yeah, it's about the Virgin Mary. I kind of didn't want to mention it. And she said, yeah, I want to watch it with you. I was like, okay. And I was watching that movie, which is really well produced. It's in Spanish with subtitles. And I was sweating bullets, man, because I thought, man, the Protestant's going to come out of her and she's going to start lashing or something. No. That movie, I'm not saying the Garabandal stuff, but that movie was, in my estimation, what brought those bears down. And after that, I noticed a change in her, and she started developing a devotion to her Blessed Mother. So in the end, Garabandal probably had little to do with it, specifically Garabandal, but it just pointed her in the right direction. Was kind of like the last push needed for Christy to start embracing the faith and all that. And after that, I noticed she started wearing her scapular and praying the rosaries and all that. Like, it was interesting, but it had nothing to do with. She never said oh, it's because of Garabandal. But I noticed after watching the movie, something changed. And praise be to God, because she obviously didn't die in the faith. So that's, I'm very thankful for it. When I was a kid, there were big signs by the church doors in Spain saying that you must wear for modesty standards, and this applies to tourists too. We need that again. No more shorts at mass. You know what, Nick? That's an interesting point, because I'm not necessarily too too hard on the attire, but I gotta admit this though, it does feel very weird to go to mass in shorts. I mean, I don't do that, but when I see that, and I'm not judgmental, but I gotta give up. Was like, that's kind of sorry, that's kind of weird. I don't know their motives, and it's none of my business. I don't know their heart. That's between them and the Lord. But it does feel weird. And modesty, I'm always an advocate for modesty anyway. What are your thoughts on the Catalan independence movement? I think is nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. This is one of the things I want to clarify. There has never been such thing as Catalonia as a nation, ever. Catalonia or Catalunya is part of this bigger province called Navarra, and that was a different kingdom that extend all the way to Italy, by the way. But Catalonia by itself, that never existed, has never been, so this movement, cessationist movement, is just essentially another attempt to chop off Spain and weaken it. And there's a lot of important things that have happened in that area, even for the faith. A lot of saints that came out of that area and all that. So anything that deteriorates that, it's going to obviously be promoted by the media. But no. And the Spanish people in general don't want that. I mean, it's like saying, who wants California removed. Well, never mind. That's a bad example. Um, there used to be the modesty standards to enter the Vatican as well. Not sure if that's still enforced or not. I could not tell you, Vani, because I never had the privilege to go to the Vatican. Never been there. The Catalan independence thing is an artificially created problem. That's right. The Russian Israeli oligarchs create problems like the migrant crisis in order to balkanize countries, just like America, the Middle East. The interesting approach, funny to mention those things of balkanizing places. That's the best way to get to the countries and weaken them. The Hispanic thought has been destroyed, like the cultural concept of Hispanic has been destroyed because he has been balkanized. We bought into this idea long ago that we're all different when really we're not. I mean, we're the same. A Russian walks and speaks Russians all the way until there's no more Russian. Spanish speakers, it was the same, but somehow we think ourselves as different. Yeah. Alexander Dugin. Yeah, a lot of people like him. I read him and I read some of his. I have a lot of friends who are very in love with what he writes and all that. And he's a good, obviously, geopolitical strategist. I don't think he's on spot about America. When it comes to, not to deviate a lot, but when it comes to geopolitics, geography, as the name implies, actually plays a big factor. And to understand why America is an empire, you got to understand America's geography. Even it's really hard. You really have to sabotage our nation not to be as prosperous as it is, because we have two oceans as borders, a cold tundra in the north as a border, and then a desert in the south. That's not an impenetrable way to. I mean, it's good luck invading America. Honestly, I mean, just to sail across the Pacific Ocean to invade America. I know a lot of media make this big deal about it and all that, but that's not as easy as people think it is. So. Plus, we have a blue water navy and all these other factors. But anyway, that's right now. We're not talking a lot about geopolitics. But yeah. So Dugin, all that to say that Alexander Dugin fails to recognize some of those points often. He's a great guy, but often fails to see that. And he exalts a lot of the Russian stuff that's just not there. A country with an economy the size of New Jersey trying to take, the whole union is kind of laughable from that standpoint. But anyway, you're completely repeating Catalonia. Absolutely. Last comment, because we're running out of time. God bless Spain. I love that country, and we're very thankful for it. And God bless America. And don't forget to pray. All right. Thank you very much, guys. We're gonna wrap it up. It's been an awesome thrill. God willing, we'll see you again soon. We'll have more show, more content. Please feel free to share and comment. I enjoy it quite a bit. And don't forget to subscribe. Please, Minute Catholic. Until next time, this is Luis Medina. What do you say? We say the same outro, or we use a different one? Well, it's just a different one this time. We used a nice intro. We'll do a different outro. Or let's see. Lástima. In Spanish, such a shame. Such a shame. Yeah. Well, we'll have more content. Don't worry. Thank you very much. As we say in Spanish, Viva Cristo Rey. You know what it is? Long live Christ the King. Viva Cristo Rey y Santa María de Guadalupe and Our Lady of Guadalupe.